And the silver shirts also have connections, and it's very fitting with the silver imagery to the birth of the contactee movement in the UFO scene. This spiritualist, this New Age movement that was professing encounters with benevolent space brothers. Apparently, Peli was close friends with some of the founding contactees in that movement. And there's some folks who have pointed out that there seems to be a lot of fascist eugenicist type of undertones to some of the beliefs espoused by these alleged entities from elsewhere. But anyway, I was curious what you thought about the Peli and the silver shirts.
He was actually a father to a lot of the nut groups from the 80s that you heard about, especially in northern Idaho. And a lot of that, the identity religion, they call it, that evolved out of basically Peli's followers. Another big one in the South was he was on the Kings Road Church. He was associated with Huey Long. It was Gerald, what was his name? It wasn't Winrod, but it was another Gerald. I can't recall the last name offhand, but he was associated with Huey's Long, and then the church down there. And again, he was one that eventually, I think it was Swift, because he adopted the identity religion too.
Well, the CIA definitely seems to have had its hand in the creation or fomenting or radicalizing of different groups and cults. And of course, there's the famous book, The Cult of Intelligence, for talking about the CIA. And of course, I think of things like Jonestown, and I know these are each area has its own whole cosmology of information and data. But going further, as we go into the 70s and 80s, and now into the last couple of decades. We saw seemingly the consolidation of this Nazi fascist power structure continuing through the CIA, and with the then head who would ultimately become vice president and then president, and that is of course the story of the rise of Poppy Bush. Can you tell us more about, I guess, how the origins lead into the reign of Poppy Bush?
Okay, well, Poppy was, again, his father was a Nazi banker. Poppy, when he was, I can't remember, he was in the Senate or the House at the time, but he campaigned against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He's made a speech on the floor about the danger of black babies. When he was in Congress. He's very much associated with Draper, which was nothing more than a straight-up racist family. When he got, where he really started coming into power was when Nixon was vice president. He was president of the RNC, the Republican National Committee, and Nixon asked him to set up the ethnic heritage groups in the Republican Party. Well, he pointed to this guy, I think his name was Placer or something. It's a Hungarian name, so I'm probably mispronouncing it, to set up these ethnic heritage groups. Well, Placer, or however you pronounce that name, was a member of the Arrow Cross in Hungary. He was actually a convicted war criminal. I don't think he was scheduled to hang. I think he was just given a prison sentence. He appointed him to set up the ethnic heritage groups, and all these groups, ethnic heritage groups from Eastern Europe, ended up being ran nothing more as havens for Nazi Queaslings. And I think it was in the re-election to when Poppy was running for re-election against Clinton, he had 3 members of his staff that had to resign because it came out that they were known Nazis, and one of them was this Plazer guy. So, I mean, he had a convicted war criminal on his campaign staff, and incidentally, that carries as far as into little Junior the Blow Monkey ring, because I've got in the book there, too, a thank you letter that Laura had wrote to this guy, this Hungarian.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a quick summation of it.
Now, wasn't he also connected to somehow in the 80s and 70s and 80s to some of the, I guess I would say the programs that followed in the wake of MK Ultra? That there was some like prison behavior modification research that I think was going on.
Well, he's been reported as to be involved or had been seen and leaving with young male prostitutes from some of these here pedophile groups. So he was in that. I don't know if that's what you was thinking of.
I was thinking more like I was thinking of some continuing behavior modification programs that were actually government funded, not so much secret, that I thought went on during the Reagan Bush era, but it's escaping me now. But so
it very well could be. It was something that is escaping me. Because I was thinking there for a while he was talking about FEMA or setting up some of the drug trafficking.
Right. Well, there's so many things that he has been involved with that we know for sure, and things that there's speculation about. But another one being, the possibility that he was involved in the attempted assassination of his president.
Yeah.
There does seem to have been this jockeying for power, more and more control.
And Poppy Bush. Towards
the first one that gave us this here one world viewpoint too. Is the first one that busted that out.
He revived the old Nazi term New World Order.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which basically, what does that amount to but a Fourth Reich, correct?
Yeah, basically Fourth Reich, corporate rule for the worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Nazis was aiming for, but they didn't. They got stopped short of it, thankfully.
Another break coming up here. Glenn, hold that thought. We'll be right back.
They say he shot the president. But I don't think he did.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to PsiOp Radio. PsiOp Radio live from Austin, Texas. I'm Smiles Lewis.
And I'm Mack White.
And our guest is still Glen Yeadon, talking about the Nazi Hydra in America. Glen, I was just remembering now, there was a series of exposés on some mind control research at the Vacaville facilities out in California by the Napa Sentinel, but I still haven't quite grokked what the George Bush connection was. I just know it's there somewhere. But something else that's always perplexed me. Clearly, again, these fascists like to use religious groups to mobilize the masses, and there's a very strange religious group that the Bushes have had a connection to for a long time, and I knew a few people who were in this cult, and they said, "Oh yeah, Ronald Reagan was like their hero," and of course, right next to Ronald Reagan was of course his vice president, George W. Bush, and Bush has some very strange connections to the Moonies and Reverend Sun Myung Moon. Can you tell us anything about that?
Certainly, the Moon organization is another one of these organizations that's a haven for fascists, whether they were Nazis or from Japan. Moon himself came out of the Korean version of the CIA, and they've been that whole organization is full of Nazis. They're it looks like to me that they're involved in the drug trade in South America, not only the drug trade, but some of the coups in South America as well. And there's a whole, that was another thing on these Nazi war criminals. When they got to South America, a lot of them became involved in arms trafficking or drug trafficking, or both. They propped them up, and they were directly associated with the Moonies as well.
Huh. Wow. And of course, was it the Moon paper, the Washington?
Washington Times.
Yeah.
They were the ones. Were they the ones that broke the story about the Page Boy scandal? With some that you alluded to earlier, with the peddling of young boys I
don't think that would have been the Mooney paper.
That probably was Washington.
I think that was the other Washington paper.
The Post, probably.
Yeah. It did make the news, but the story just kind of evaporated, didn't it?
Yeah, well, what happened was it evaporated, but the one that overtook it was the Franklin case broke at the same time. And I think the Franklin case took over the publicity as far as that aspect of it, the pedophile and stuff. I actually feel that the CIA, and I make a point of it in the book, they used the pedophile behavior to control the politicians.
And there have been some big names caught up in that net.
An embarrassing photo or whatever, and then blackmail them from there on. It's the pedophile behavior goes worldwide. Just as the Iraqi war was starting to break, there was a case that broke in England that reached up as far as Blair, and Blair killed the story in the papers. It also involved Pete Townsend of The Who. There was also a case in Belgium that reached up to the highest reaches in the offices, political offices.
Yeah, you see this time and time again around the world, and I think you're right. I think these different intelligence agencies use it as a way of blackmailing, and we certainly saw there's definitely evidence of that in the Watergate connections, but also the MK Ultra illicit the use of prostitutes and monitoring them and getting them to dose unsuspecting Johns. But moving forward, I got to say, that morning of September 11th, 2001, to me, I guess I'd already been primed. I've been researching deep politics, conspiracy, and parapolitics for a while, and when that event happened, I just knew what was coming next, and that was the continued curtailing of civil liberties in this country, but at a much faster pace, and that's exactly what we've seen. What's been your perspective on the events of 9/11 and how it's been used since?
Well, I certainly think, let me say it from the outset, I think 9/11 was an inside job. I've never seen a building collapse in a neat little pile, no matter how it was brought down, unless it was a controlled demolition. But yeah, it was used to incite the people into a war, and it was a war for oil more than anything. And it was basically what the PN, if you read the PNAC, the Project for the New American Century, they called it. They said that we would need a new Pearl Harbor to get the people motivated, and I believe this was it.